started the night I came home drunk from my best friend's birthday party. I wasn't planning to stay over, but after 6 tequila shots, losing my phone charger, and somehow misplacing one of my shoes, crashing at Max's place seemed smarter than trying to Uber home in that state. Max and I had been best friends since middle school. His house was basically my second home by now. I'd slept over hundreds of times, on the couch, on the floor, once even in the bathtub. Nothing weird, nothing notable. Except this time, his older brother was home, Ethan. He had just moved back in with their parents after a rough breakup and a job that didn't work out in another city. I'd barely seen him in years, not since he went off to college while Max and I were still dorky high school sophomores, playing Xbox and eating frozen pizza at 2 a.m. But now, here he was, mid-20s, all grown up, and looking nothing like the lanky guy that first remembered. He'd filled out. Broad shoulders, a little scruff on his jaw, and this quiet, brooding energy like he'd seen some shit and didn't feel like talking about it. He barely said a word when he saw me, just nodded once and went back to whatever he was doing. That should have been the end of it. Just a random reappearance of a hot older brother I used to low-key crush on. But I didn't know then what that night was going to turn into. The party was chaos. Max had a backyard full of half-drunk friends, a speaker they kept cutting out, and some neighbor yelling about the noise by 11:30. I didn't even realize how wasted I was until I tried to sit on a lawn chair and missed it completely, landing flat on my back in the grass. "Jesus, lightweight," Max said, dragging me up and tossing an arm around my shoulders. "You're not walking out of here." "Wouldn't dream of it," I slurred. Max got me inside, handed me a glass of water, and told me I could crash in the guest room, his old room, since he'd moved his stuff into the basement a year ago. I barely made it up the stairs. I stripped off my jeans, left them in a crumpled pile by the bed, and flopped down in my shirt and boxers, the room spinning just enough to make me feel like I was floating. I didn't even think to lock the door. Why would I? I must have passed out instantly. When I woke up, it was still dark. The kind of middle-of-the-night darkness that made the room feel heavy, quiet, like it was holding its breath. But I wasn't alone. There was someone else in the bed. At first I thought it was Max. Maybe he decided to crash here too. Maybe he was drunker than I thought. But as my eyes adjusted, I realized the body next to me wasn't his. It was Ethan. He was on his side, facing me, his arm resting on the mattress between us. His eyes were closed, but his breathing was light, too steady to be deep asleep. His bare arm brushed mine, and I realized he wasn't wearing a shirt, and neither of us had much space. "What the?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. He didn't move. I could feel the heat coming off him, the way his chest rose and fell. He smelled like clean laundry and something faintly like cologne. My mind scrambled to make sense of what was happening. Had he gotten confused? Was there a mix-up with the rooms? I shifted slightly, and that's when he opened his eyes. He blinked slowly, like he wasn't surprised to see me. "Hey," he said, voice low, raspy. I froze. Hey?" He didn't move, didn't explain. Just looked at me like it was perfectly normal for us to be sharing a twin bed in his little brother's old room. "You okay?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. He nodded once. "Couldn't sleep." "So, you just got into bed with me?" Ethan's eyes didn't waver. "Yeah." A long pause. "You want me to leave?" he asked, and there was something in his tone, something unsure, almost vulnerable. I didn't answer right away. Because truthfully, I didn't know what I wanted. Or maybe I did, and that was the problem. I could have said no. I could have told him to get up, go back to wherever he was supposed to be sleeping, and chalk the whole thing up to a drunk misunderstanding. But I didn't. Instead, I just stayed still. "It's fine," I said finally. Yeah, it's fine." Ethan didn't say anything else. He shifted a little, turned onto his back, and we lay there in silence. I stared up at the ceiling, hyper-aware of every inch of space between us, or, more accurately, the lack of it. His arm brushed mine again, Not enough to mean something, but enough that I felt it. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. And eventually, despite the electricity under my skin, I drifted back to sleep. When I woke up again, the sun was already sneaking in through the curtains, and the bed was empty. For a second, I thought I'd imagined it. Maybe it was one of those vivid dreams you get when you're hungover and confused. But then I saw the extra pillow on the floor. A dent in the blanket where someone had definitely been lying. No, it was real. I sat up slowly, my head still foggy. Downstairs, I could hear movement. Max laughing, something clinking in the kitchen. Life already returning to normal. By the time I dragged myself downstairs, Ethan was gone. Max was in the kitchen making eggs, his hair sticking up at impossible angles, wearing the same hoodie from last night. "You look like death," he grinned. "Feel like it," I mumbled, grabbing a glass of water. "You left your jeans upstairs. Kinda rude to flash my entire hallway." I snorted. "You're welcome." He didn't mention his brother. I didn't either. Ethan didn't come back that day. Or the next. I asked Max about it casually, pretending I was just curious. "Oh, he's staying at a friend's for a bit," Max said, waving it off. "Said he needed a change of scenery." Right, sure. I told myself to let it go. It was weird, but maybe it didn't mean anything. Maybe he'd been drunk too. Maybe it was just some late-night impulse he instantly regretted. Except 2 nights later, I got a text. "Ethan, you awake?" It was past midnight. I was lying in bed, scrolling my phone, not expecting to hear from him at all. Me. Yeah. A pause. Then another buzz. "Ethan, can I come over?" I stared at the screen for a full minute, my thumb hovering over the reply. Me. Why? Another long pause. "Ethan, I don't know. Just need to see you." That was all it took. I gave him my address. 20 minutes later, he was outside. He looked the same as always. Quiet, unreadable, hands shoved into the pockets of his hoodie. But there was something softer in his eyes, something I hadn't seen before. I opened the door. Neither of us spoke for a moment. "You okay?" I asked, stepping aside to let him in. He shrugged. "Not really." He sat on the edge of my bed while I closed the door, unsure what to do with myself. "I shouldn't have done that," he said after a beat, not looking at me. "The other night." I swallowed. "It's fine." "No," he said quickly. "I mean, I wasn't thinking. I didn't want to be alone." There was a silence that followed. Not awkward, just full. "I've been dealing with a lot," he added. The move. The breakup. Feeling like I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. And then you were there, and you looked at me like I wasn't a mess. I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I'd say something stupid. Ethan finally looked at me. "You make me feel calm," he said. "I don't know why." My voice came out quieter than I meant it to. "You do the same to me." He stood up, slowly, like he was unsure of his next move. Then he stepped closer, his hands in his hoodie pocket, and his eyes didn't leave mine. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said again. "Me either." We stood there, inches apart. I could feel the heat between us, the quiet kind of gravity that pulls two people together before either of them realizes they've moved. Then he leaned in. It wasn't rushed or dramatic. His forehead touched mine first, like he was asking for permission without using words. I didn't pull back. And then, finally, he kissed me. It was slow. No fireworks. No dramatic music swelling in the background. Just a quiet, tentative kiss between two people who weren't sure what the hell they were doing, but knew in that moment they didn't want to be anywhere else. His lips were soft, warmer than I expected, a little hesitant, like he was still figuring out whether he'd crossed a line. But when I didn't move, didn't stop him, he kissed me again. This time, he lingered. It was surreal. This was Ethan, Max's brother, the guy the first used to try not to stare at when he came home from college visits. The one who, until a few days ago, barely acknowledged me, except with a nod in passing. And now, he was here, in my room, kissing me like he needed it. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us said anything. He just looked at me with this mix of vulnerability and caution, like he was bracing for a reaction he wasn't sure he could handle. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. I just tugged at the sleeve of his hoodie and pulled him down next to me on the bed. We didn't do anything more than lie there. His arm brushed mine again, like it had that first night, but this time, it wasn't an accident. He folded his hands on his stomach, staring at the ceiling. "I haven't kissed a guy since high school," he said, like it was a confession. I turned my head toward him. "That makes two of us." He let out a breath that sounded somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. I didn't expect it to feel like that. "Like what?" "Right." I didn't answer. I just let the silence stretch out. Comfortable this time. I could hear his breathing slow, feel the weight of him settling next to me like he was finally letting go of something. At some point, we both drifted off. The next morning was quiet. We woke up with the sun sneaking through the blinds, and for a few seconds, everything felt normal. Like this was just another lazy morning and he was supposed to be there. Ethan sat up first, rubbing his eyes and running a hand through his hair. He looked over at me, his expression unreadable. "You're not going to tell Max, right?" he asked, his voice still scratchy with sleep. I shook my head. "Not unless you want me to." He nodded, staring down at his hands. "I don't want this to be a one-time thing," he said quietly. "But I also don't know what the hell I'm doing." "Then let's not do anything we're not ready for," I said. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. "But you're okay with this? With me?" "Yeah," I said, surprising even myself with how certain I sounded. "I'm okay with this." He stayed for breakfast. We didn't kiss again. Didn't even touch, but the air between us had changed. There was an understanding now, something unspoken but undeniable. Later that day, I got a text. "Ethan, you free tonight?" Me, always, Ethan. I don't want to sleep alone again. And just like that, it became our new normal. The thing about falling into something with someone is, half the time, you don't realize it's happening until you're already there. Ethan came over again that night, and the night after. Eventually, there wasn't a point in him going home anymore. I started keeping a spare toothbrush in my bathroom drawer. He brought over a hoodie and a change of clothes, just in case, but they never left. We didn't talk about what we were doing. Not really. No big conversations, no labels, just quiet nights, shared space, the occasional lingering look that said more than either of us could manage out loud. Some nights, we kissed, softly, slowly, like we were still figuring out how to fit together. Other nights, we just lay side by side, not touching, but not apart either. It was easy. It was terrifying. One night, after a particularly shitty day at work, I came home to find him already in my kitchen, barefoot, frying eggs. Like he belonged there. "You didn't answer my texts," he said without looking up. "Phone died," I muttered, kicking off my shoes. He slid a plate toward me across the counter. "You okay?" I wanted to say yeah. I wanted to shrug it off. But something about the way he asked, low, direct, like he actually cared, broke something open. "I'm tired," I said. "Like constantly. Like I'm moving through syrup." Ethan set down the spatula. "Sit!" I sat. He came around the counter and stood in front of me, arms folded across his chest, then dropped them slowly, resting his hands on my shoulders. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said again, almost like it was a mantra. "But I want to be here. With you, if that helps." I nodded, feeling the words lodge somewhere in my chest. He didn't kiss me, just leaned forward and rested his forehead against mine for a second. That was somehow better. But not everything was that easy. One Saturday, we were out, just grabbing coffee, nothing dramatic. But we ran into Max. I'd almost forgotten for a second that this wasn't just mine. That Ethan wasn't just some secret I could keep wrapped in soft mornings and closed bedroom doors. Max grinned when he saw us. What, you guys on a bro date? Ethan stiffened beside me. I laughed it off. Nah. Just needed caffeine and someone to complain about my week 2. Max raised an eyebrow. Weird. Ethan doesn't usually volunteer for human interaction. Ethan managed a half smile. Guess I make exceptions. It was a small thing. Barely a moment. But later, when we were back at my place, I felt the shift. Ethan paced a little. Sat down, stood up again. You okay? I asked. He looked at me, and for once, he didn't hedge. I think Max would lose his shit if he knew. I didn't ask what he meant by knew. I didn't have to. You're not wrong, I said. But do you want to stop? No, he said immediately. God, no, I'm not ready to have that conversation. With him. With anyone. I nodded. Okay, we don't have to. He stared at me, like he was waiting for me to flinch. When I didn't, he exhaled. You're too good at this, he muttered. This not freaking out thing. I smiled. You'll get there. And maybe he would. Or maybe he wouldn't. But for now, he was still here. Still choosing this. Whatever it was. Weeks passed. And somehow, what we had stopped feeling like an accident. It slipped into my life the way morning light slips through blinds. Soft, uninvited, but impossible to ignore. Ethan's toothbrush was next to mine now. His socks mysteriously multiplied in my laundry basket. He started leaving half-drunk energy drinks in my fridge like it was his own. I didn't complain, but the more normal it started to feel, the more I noticed the little fractures underneath. The pauses when we were in public. The way he'd pull back if someone glanced too long. The way he never stayed past sunrise when he thought someone might see his car outside. One night, he stayed late. Later than usual. We were sprawled on the couch watching some terrible sci-fi show neither of us were actually following. My feet were in his lap. His hand rested lightly on my shin, thumb tracing absent-minded circles. I told my mom I was seeing someone, he said, out of nowhere. I blinked. Yeah? Didn't tell her who. Or what. Just someone. How'd she take it? She said, as long as they don't make you miserable, I'm happy for you. I smiled. Smart lady, he shrugged. She's the only one in my family who doesn't care about labels. I didn't press. I just let my hand rest on his wrist, grounding us both. That night, he didn't leave. He fell asleep in my bed, one arm slung across my waist, his breath soft and warm against the back of my neck. I lay there, wide awake, listening to his heartbeat against my back. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. But life doesn't stay in a holding pattern forever. The next afternoon, I got a call from Max. Hey, quick thing. Ethan said he left his charger at your place. Mind if I swing by and grab it? I froze. Yeah, sure, I'll leave it by the door. Cool. You two hanging out a lot lately, huh? I laughed, maybe too quickly. I guess so. You okay, man? That question hit harder than it should have. I'm good, I said, just tired. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The charger was in my room. So was Ethan's hoodie. And his book. And the key I'd given him last week without thinking. I wasn't just tired. I was scared. Because it was starting to matter too much. That night, Ethan came over like usual, tossing his hoodie onto the back of my desk chair, stretching out on my bed like it was his. Max picked up your charger, I said. He sat up slightly. You told him I left it? He asked. I didn't say more. He looked at me for a moment. You okay? I hesitated. Are we pretending this isn't something? Silence. Then, I'm not pretending. Then what are we doing? He looked down at his hands, rubbed the back of his neck. I'm figuring it out, he said. I didn't plan this. You just happened. And I don't know what that means yet. I sat down across from him. You don't have to have all the answers. But I need to know I'm not just a distraction. You're not, he said, almost too quickly. You're the only thing that makes sense right now. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a promise. But it was something real. He reached for my hand. I don't want to lose this. You won't, I said, squeezing his fingers. But we're going to have to stop hiding eventually. He nodded, quiet. Just not yet, he said. Not tonight. So I pulled him close, and for that night, I let the rest of the world fall away. There's something about being in the in-between, not quite hidden, not quite seen. That's where we existed. In late nights and early mornings, in the space between knowing what we were and pretending it didn't matter. It worked for a while. We got good at the rhythm. He'd text when he was close. I'd unlock the door and act like it was just any other Tuesday. We'd cook cheap pasta, fight over the playlist, make out until we were breathless, then fall asleep tangled in limbs and quiet breaths. But cracks were forming. It started with little things, like the night I invited him to come to a friend's birthday dinner with me. Nothing serious, just a small group. People who wouldn't care. People who didn't know him well enough to make it a thing. You should come, I said, sliding a beer toward him across the counter. He hesitated. Who's gonna be there? A couple of my college friends. Luke. Cam. You've met Cam. Ethan didn't answer right away. I don't know, he finally said. Feels public. It's not a date, I said, trying not to let my disappointment slip out. You'd just be there. With me. He rubbed the back of his neck, one of his usual tells when he felt cornered. I'm just not there yet. And that was the thing. He always said he'd get there. Just not yet. That yet started to weigh on me. I went alone. Spent most of the night wondering if he'd change his mind, show up late, surprise me. He didn't. When I got home, he was sitting on my bed in his hoodie, staring at the floor. I didn't want to be seen, he said quietly, like it was a confession. I leaned against the doorframe. By who? By anyone. And just like that, the air changed. You're not ashamed of me, right? I asked, trying to sound casual. His head snapped up. What? No, it's not that. Then what is it? He struggled with the words. I could see it all over his face. I've never had something real with a guy before, he said. You're the first. I wanted to be patient. I really did. But part of me whispered, is that enough? Still, I crossed the room, sat beside him. I don't need you to shout it from rooftops. I just need to not feel like a secret. I know, he said. I'm trying. And I believed him. But trying only gets you so far. 2 days later, Max showed up at my place unannounced. I opened the door, heart instantly thudding in my chest. He stepped inside, eyes scanning the apartment. You got company? I shook my head too fast. No, just me. He looked at the second coffee mug on the counter. The extra shoes by the door. His brow furrowed, but he didn't say anything. Just sat on my couch like he owned it. So, serious question, he said. Are you hooking up with someone? I froze. Why? Because you've been weird. Cagey. And Ethan's been different. I don't know, man. I feel like something's up. I tried to keep my voice level. I don't know what you mean. He narrowed his eyes. You sure? I didn't answer. And that was answer enough. He stood. Dude, if you're seeing someone, just say it. It's not a big deal. And I almost did. I almost let it out, right there. But I didn't. Because it wasn't just my secret. Max left with a shrug. Whatever, just don't lie to me. That night, I told Ethan. He suspects. Ethan's face tightened. What did you say? Nothing. He nodded, pacing. You can't hide this forever, I said gently. I know. Then what are we doing, Ethan? He stopped pacing, looked at me. And finally, he said the words I'd been waiting to hear. I don't want to hide anymore. The next few days felt like that pause between heartbeats. Everything was the same, but charged, like the air before a storm. Ethan was quieter than usual. Not distant, just thoughtful. He'd reach for my hand when we were alone. He'd sit closer on the couch, like he was holding on to something he wasn't ready to let go of. And I felt it too, the shift, that edge of something real. Then one night, after dinner, he pushed his plate aside and said, "I want to tell Max." I blinked. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I don't want to sneak around anymore. If this," he motioned between us, "if this is going somewhere, I want to stop pretending it's not happening." I searched his face. He wasn't saying it with confidence. He was saying it with vulnerability, like he knew the risk, and he was choosing it anyway. "When?" I asked. "Now." So we drove. Max was on the porch when we pulled up, hoodie on, beer in hand. He grinned when he saw me, but his smile faltered when he saw Ethan step out of the car too. "Both of you?" he said, standing up. Ethan didn't waste time. "We need to talk." Max raised an eyebrow. "About?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I've been seeing someone for a while now." Max looked between us, confused. Then slowly realization hit. His eyes landed on me. "No," he said quietly. "You too?" I nodded. Max took a step back. "Seriously?" Ethan stepped forward. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." Max let out a bitter laugh. "That's your explanation?" "It's more than that," I said, stepping in. "We didn't do this to mess with you. It's real." Max looked at me. Hurt flickered across his face. "You're my best friend." "I still am." "You lied to me." "I didn't know how to tell you." Silence stretched out. Long. Heavy. Then Max said, "You know what hurts the most? Not that it's you two, that you both acted like I wouldn't understand." Ethan looked away. "I didn't want to lose you." "You still might," Max said. My stomach dropped. He looked at both of us. "I need time." And with that, he walked back inside. We stood on the porch for a minute. The air was cold. Everything felt still. Ethan let out a breath. "Well, that could have gone better." "He didn't slam the door," I said. "That's something." But it hurt. Because this was the part we hadn't prepared for. The fallout. Still, on the drive back, Ethan reached for my hand and didn't let go. "We'll figure it out," he said quietly. And I believed him. Because this, whatever it was worth figuring out.